Hello, I'm Harry Riley. Welcome to Harry's 10-Minute Tales. This is called Rioters. The Moon in Eastwood, October 1817. We four meet each week, sniping and complaining like old women while others are working for the cause. I say we join Captain Brandreth and the Derbyshire men on the Nottingham march. There'll be hundreds more ready to join them in the town centre, and we should be part of it. It's all right for you to talk, Tom Pearce. You're a single man with no ties, but I have a wife and 3 kids to support. All the more reason to fight for what you believe in, Bill Kirtley. It's time they gave the working man the vote instead of forcing wages below poverty level and making us scratch about like animals for a living. Last week they drove old Benny Simpkins out on the street and killed his pig, and all because his skinflint money-grabbing landlord refused to fix his rotten roof. God knows he had precious little to call his own. So what if we do get topped or end up in clink? It'll be no worse than being lower down pit on the end of a rope. I'm sick of living on note. But I've heard they'll call out the soldiers to stop them. They can't afford to let them get to Nottingham, Tom. Arthur, you're a nervous jelly-legs. Our betters won't have it all their own way. We have young Lord Byron to speak up for us now. There's talk that one day we'll have a charter, with every working man over 21 getting the right to vote. I'm with Tom. It can't go on. I've been living off stale bread and rotten potatoes for months now, and it's getting worse. Bosses think they can walk all over us. Thanks, Frank. Now what about you two? The other 2 men reluctantly agreed to join the venture. Good, because there's somebody at the bar I want you to meet. He's a pal I used to knock around with as a kid, when we both lived at Wilford. A shabbily dressed, dark-bearded man in his early 30s brought his pint of black and tan to their corner table, and after furtively looking around, sat down on an empty seat. Tom made the introductions. Lads, this is the Nottingham captain. Jeremiah, meet Bill Kirtley, Arthur Connolly and Frank Richardson. All 3 are joining us on the march. The newcomers shook hands and spoke softly. Brothers, we all know what's happening. The cottages are finished, because the bosses are bringing in new machinery to cut down on labour. Our downtrodden comrades are being cast off, dumped on the scrap heap of history. Tom Pearce cut in. Jeremiah's a bit of a poet, lads, but he's dead right. The unemployed Luddite firebrand took a drink and continued. Those self-seeking varmints in Parliament are living off the fat of the land, and we need a revolution. A new government of the people, run by us. Here he thumped the table. I say Jack's as good as his master. By now he was getting well into his stride. The committee has appointed me to lead tomorrow's march. The framework knitters and the Butterley ironwork lads will meet me at the White Horse pub in Pentridge to march to Nottingham, and then on to London, where tens of thousands will join us from all over the country. I need honest men who know the way to launch an attack on local capitalist property, Collick Hall, Smith's Bank and the Castle. It's too late for talking. Those rich bastards won't listen, so we need to show them we mean business. Next day dawned with a drizzly October mist, but the Eastwood men were nowhere to be seen, as the ragtag bunch of marchers, armed with all manner of rusty weapons, strode on, belligerently singing and shouting through Langley Mill. The Moon in 4 were off on a mission agreed with Jeremiah the previous night. Tom Pearce had set off for the castle, owned by the Duke of Newcastle, with Bill Kirtley after first smashing up the stocks on Nottingham Road Eastwood with his short 2-pound lump hammer. A minor burst of law-breaking to get his blood up for the great task ahead. Meanwhile, Frank Richardson, heavily intoxicated on rough gin, was in Nottingham town centre, having great fun smashing windows for all he was worth. Arthur Connolly encouraged him, but did not join in. A man with a local accent had already tipped off the authorities about the march, naming some of the ringleaders. Grim-faced soldiers of the militia were waiting to intercept them at Kimberley. Many of the rain-sodden marchers turned and ran, but most were quickly gathered up and thrown in jail. It was a fiasco, but it shook the establishment to its foundations. Tom Pearce's attempt to set fire to Nottingham Castle ended in dismal failure, and he and Frank Richardson joined the other miserable malcontents in prison. Footnote: Nottingham Castle was gutted in 1831 by a large crowd seeking reform. In 1838, the People's Charter gave all working men over the age of 21 the right to vote by secret ballot. Jeremiah Brandreth, found guilty of treason and seditious writing, was hung, drawn and quartered, and 35 of his co-conspirators were deported to the colonies. Tom Pearce and Frank Richardson were deported. Arthur Connolly and Bill Kirtley walked from the dock as free men. The violent writers of those troubled times are now long gone and forgotten, or are they? Spoken quickly, Eastwood writers might sound like Eastwood writers. End.